be into.
And that bridge, we should mention, is a main point of access into the state park.
It's the only one to the beach.
And if you want to go to the beach, which is the reason that a lot of people go to our state parks, you have to hike a mile around. And not that I mind hiking a mile, it's good for me, but if you have smaller children and beach gear and children gear, and you're trying to carry all of that and get to the beach over a mile hike with a family, either side of the day is difficult. At the beginning of the day it's difficult, and the end of the day it's difficult because everybody's really tired. So then people tend not to go to the state parks, and then we lose the revenue.
Exactly. And the state loses the revenue because all those nearby motels, restaurants, other businesses that were dependent on the tourism traffic coming to Warren Dunes State Park, folks say, well, if I can't get to the beach, why make the trip? And all the parking's down near the beach. There's parking literally for many thousands of vehicles at one time.
Exactly.
The beach, when it's busy, has 50,000 people on it. It's a great sight.
Yes,
it's a wonderful time.
It's beautiful.
The water was a little brisk, but it's going to be great.
Well, we're glad you got to go down there, and you were able to cross over the new bridge.
We were one of the first vehicles, so
wonderful.
Things are looking great.
That's good.
The MDOT, the DNR, the contractor did a great job working together. This is an example of what folks can do when it's important and they work hard. They did a great job. Our challenge is we want to ensure that the state, instead of having a couple $1 million a year to maintain this $1 billion worth of infrastructure, is able to have more like $15 to $17 million a year, so we don't get to the point where 2 catastrophic failures equal the closure of a major park like a Warren Dunes or Ludington, where the interpretive center collapsed under the weight of snow this past winter.
Okay. And so now, how much is it going to cost to fix Ludington? Do we know yet?
We don't know, but in the 6 figures.
In the 6 figures.
So this puts us in a real pickle.
And these aren't the only 2 state parks where we've had problems. These are some of the most major, but there are buildings falling down, caving in, bathrooms in disrepair, and a lot of other infrastructure problems across the state because there has not been any general fund money going into our state parks for the last 5 years.
That's correct.
And we have been rating, quote unquote, rating the State Parks Endowment Fund interest, which we, conceivably is okay for a short period of time. But the State Parks Endowment Fund has a corpus that cannot be touched. That money has been going in there for several years now to build up that fund. And the interest can be used for, it was really intended only for infrastructure. And unfortunately, the legislature has been rating it for the past 5 years and also using it for operation purposes. So we're at a real critical point.
Very critical.
Of our state park system.
And our idea was that let's let voters, vehicle registrants, make the decision on what they think about state parks. We think most Michiganians, if they have an opportunity to go from a $24 annual motor vehicle permit to enter a state park to $10 on a vehicle, will say, that's a good deal. That's a 60% cut in a fee. That's pretty unheard of in government circles these days.
Well, especially right now where we are struggling this year, really struggling to balance the budget. And I don't think there's going to be one department or agency within our state that doesn't get cut, and probably substantial cuts this year going forward. And so we're going to give the people
a good deal.
A good deal, because if they ordinarily bought a season pass, it was $24. The governor's recommendation was to increase it to $28. So in her budget recommendation this year is to increase the state parks pass to $28. And we're saying, no, for $10, you can go into any state park as often as you want, and your passport or your entry will be your license plate.
And the other idea is we think that more folks then will say, what the heck, the $6 just to get in the gate put us off for a one-day pass, but for $10, if we can come and go as we please, so when the church picnic's held, let's go to the state park, because we don't have to wonder who's got a sticker. We're all going in. And we're going to have a great time there. And the other nice thing is that we've created in the legislation that you have authored a way to also provide a portion of these funds, a small portion, but a vital portion, to help renovate local parks through a grant program using the same criteria as the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund that many local governments are very active with already, and an even smaller portion, but again a vital portion, for Michigan State Forest campgrounds and pathways. The pathways for non-motorized recreationists, whether you're an equestrian rider, mountain biker, hiker, these are incredibly great opportunities, and there is no funding source for them other than the general fund, which is in very short supply.
Right. So this is a plus for all our local parks too, because
Absolutely.
they can apply, assuming this passes and is signed
Yep.
into law by the governor,
Yep.
then they can apply for some of those dollars every year or every other year or whenever, or when they have a project and they need some
Yep.
additional money for an infrastructure project, and help use that money. Because right now, I used to be a local Parks and Rec
Yeah.
commissioner on my township, as you may well remember. And at that time, there was only some federal dollars and very minimal federal dollars available for local parks. So this gives them an opportunity to
This
have
would be
a
critical,
fund.
and it would be targeted at renovation of facilities. We know from working with local governments through my work at the university in Parks and Recreation, their biggest challenge is not dollars to buy land, it's to take care
Right.
and renovate what they have. Facilities built in the 50s and 60s may not be accessible to folks with disabilities. Now's the time to change, to welcome all the public who pay the taxes to the park.
Right.
This is the real money to help get that done. We believe if this goes through, this will double the number of local units that win a development grant every year, with a primary target of renovation. And again, no separate forms to fill out. If you were filling it out, basically we just double the number of winners.
So that would be, yes, and you're right. You point out, I think, an interesting fact is the baby boomers age. More and more have challenges. Sometimes it's just, surgery, a minor surgery, but suddenly you can't walk as well as you used to, or as far as you used to, let alone those who are in wheelchairs or walkers or whatever. And I do get that question fairly often in my office: what parks are accessible to people who may have some minimal needs? And if you look at the way our parks were built years ago, they weren't always built as welcoming of people with those kinds of challenges as they were, or they should be today. So that's a change that can be made.
Yep.
I want to talk about another issue because, as we sit here, it's almost summer in Michigan, time for people to think about vacationing. It's also at a time when we have a lot of people underemployed and some that are unemployed. Actually, more that are unemployed today, I think. But anyway, people are deciding what they're going to do for their vacations this year. And a lot of people have talked to me about the fact that they're going to do a staycation. They're going to stay at home and maybe do day trips one way or another, 2 or 3 days, or maybe do an overnight trip to a nearby area where there are a lot of natural resources, and then stay at home the other part of that week or week and a half. And state parks have always been a big economic engine for this state. I happen to live between actually the 3 or 4 state parks in my 25-mile driving radius, so I know how important it is to the tourism people in my towns. I mean, I know there are businesses who say if we didn't have the state parks nearby, and the business that they bring to the restaurants, the stores, the grocery stores for the the people who are camping, staying all night, the restaurants, the hotels and motels, they would. Well, many of them would not be able to stay in business. That's the bottom line. The state park is that important to them. And we're only, wherever we drive, we're only how far, wherever we live, we're only...
You're less than an hour from a state park anywhere in Michigan.
Less than an hour from a state park anywhere in Michigan.
Yep.
So they're a big part of our economic engine. And I know you've done some studies on that and looked at some of the information. Can you talk about that a little bit?